welcome back. This is Natasha. So I'm going to continue on with part 2 of the card series for the Hero Arts card kit. So let's get right into card number 4. I just stamped out some images and colored them in with my Spectrum Noir pens. And then here I'm just doing the placing of how I want everything, the images to lay out on my card. And I did cut out that little frame with the lavender shimmer paper that came in the kit. And then I'm just going to be stamping my sentiment with some Versamark black onyx ink. So there it is there. And I took the same exact frame die cut that I cut that piece out with, the lavender piece, and I took the next biggest one because I wanted to make a frame. So I layered them inside of each other and got some white cardstock to make a frame. Using this purple cardstock that I turned into a card base, really nice, gives it a little bit of something in the background, not overpowering or overbearing. So here I made a big mistake and I left it in. I left the whole process in just so you guys could see how I went about dealing with the situation. Okay, so here's everything laid out. I took some foam adhesive and I'm gonna be popping up that white frame on the card base. Okay, so here's my card base, making sure everything's the way it needs to be, the right way. And I am popping that frame right there in the middle, adding some liquid adhesive, and then laying that lavender piece on the inside. So here I have the fairy and I use some foam tape, half foam tape, and the other half I use liquid adhesive because the frame is popped up, so I needed to make sure that everything was even and the fairy has some good stance. So there you see my finger smudges the sentiment because it's the VersaFine and it takes a little while to dry, and on top of that this cardstock is like a shimmery cardstock, so it's a very slick surface. So I touched it and I didn't know that it was still wet and it smudged and it even got onto the white frame. So I just took a craft knife, scraped it off a little bit, used an eraser, and it looks like nothing was even there. So I had to figure out how I was going to cover up this mistake because obviously I'm not going to leave it on the card. So I just took those dandelions and I pushed them up, and that dandelion fit perfectly to cover that mistake. Okay, so I just laid everything down, stuck everything on with liquid adhesive, and called it a day. Okay, so now the problem of what am I gonna do for a sentiment. Okay, so I took a hello die cut. I cut that out of black mirror cardstock, and then I layered that a couple of times. I think I layered it with 4. I did 4 pieces of cardstock, layered it together, and then I'm gonna adhere that onto my card front. So this solved the problem, and you know, it happens. We're only human, and so that kind of stuff happens, and we just got to figure out how to see if we can salvage, you know, the project. That's the name of the game sometimes. You don't want to start over, and you just need to figure out how to make it work. Okay, so I took a white gel pen, added some area highlights for shadows, and I'm taking my Spectrum Noir glitter pen and I am going to town on that white frame. It is shimmery, like always with that shimmer pen. Okay, so moving on to the next card. It's card number 5. Okay, so I took a white cardstock. I am prepping my surface with a powder tool. I'm going to take those dandelions. I'm going to stamp them out with some Versamark ink, add some gold embossing powder, and heat set that bad boy. Okay, and I did this a couple of times. I think I did it 3 times because I had a total of 6 dandelions. Okay, and heat emboss that. And then I'm just going to take the coordinating dies. I'm gonna lay that onto the embossed images, and then I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. I hold it down with a little piece of tape so it doesn't move around when it goes into the die cutting machine. Okay, so once I did that to all the pieces that I had embossed, and I have 6 of them. Okay, so I used the new Nouveau mousse that I had showed in my previous video that I got from that haul. I took a little bit in a paintbrush, added it to my work surface, and spritzed a little bit of water, and it gave me this, like I could watercolor with it over these dandelions, and it's really nice. It's like a really subtle, very light shimmer. You know, it's not even catching on the camera, but I did that to all 6 of them. And then I took the My Favorite Things stitched square die, and I'm taking that same shimmery lavender cardstock, and I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. Now this die cuts a frame, a stitched frame, and then like a square, like a rounded square piece as well. So what I did was I'm taking now the frame, and I'm going to take that gold and white glitter cardstock. It's super pretty, very elegant looking, but I'm going to cut the same exact with the same exact die just so I could get the inside piece. And I'm going to save that white piece there, the white, you know, frame, stitched frame part. You'll see that on the next card. So taking this piece, I'm going to be adhering it with some liquid adhesive, and I'm going to try to get it as centered as I possibly can. I really tried, folks, to get it centered as best as I can. I think it's a little off still, but it's like barely noticeable. Okay, so I am as well on this one going to take some foam adhesive, and I'm going to add that to the frame so it's a little bit of dimension there. It's so cute. Look at that shimmer from that gold and white cardstock. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the placement of my dandelions here. And I'm not sure how or what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to fiddle around with them. And so when I do decide that that's the placement I want, I'm just going to take a little bit of liquid adhesive, and I'm going to glue the flowers together. I'm not going to glue them to my project yet, just glue them together so I can add some foam adhesive, because it'll just be a pain if I had to add foam adhesive to every single one of these flowers. Okay, so I just clustered them in groups of 3. And then I'm just going to place them on into that little frame there, just kind of letting them hang out a little bit. I'm going to cut off the excess there. And then I decided that I did have a little bit of foam adhesive on a couple of the stems. So, you know, with it being raised, with the frame, the stitched frame being raised, it didn't go. So I just took the foam adhesive, cut it off, adding some liquid adhesive to just make everything flush. Okay, and then I added the little not a butterfly, it's a ladybug, and then a couple of little embellishments. I embossed a couple of those little seeds with the gold embossing. Okay, so I stamped out Your Dandy with the VersaFine ink on this strip of paper, and I'm just trying to figure out where I'm gonna place the sentiment. So I'm just gonna trim off the sides to kind of where the frame ends, and then I'm gonna take my corner chomper, and it's really cool. It makes this really elegant looking like frame around my sentiment. Really cute. And I'm gonna take that and take some gold ink and kind of go around to give it a little more texture. Give it that extra pop. Stands off the paper so it's not, you know, tone on tone with the white and white. And then popping that bad boy up on some foam adhesive, right smack dab underneath in the center as I can get it. And then since everything's kind of rounded, I'm going to use my corner chomper and I'm just going to chomp the corners of my card. I'm using the We Are Memory Keepers. They have this sequence stickers that I had bought. It was probably a couple years ago, and I've just had it in my stash. So it's sequence and it's got a little bit of a sticky back, so you don't have to add adhesive and mess around with that. So this is some gold sequence. Really cute, simple, and that should do it for card number 5. And let's move on to the last card in this series. Okay, so in the card kit, they sent us this thank you sentiment, or this thank you stamp set. I'm going to use that little fairy, as well as on the main stamp set, I'm going to use the sentiment, no wish is too big or too small. And I'm going to be using that cutout that came from the card number 5. This is the end part, the square part that came from that frame die cut. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna use the VersaFine, but I'm not gonna be as foolish as the first time. I am going to heat emboss this bad boy with some clear embossing powder. And so you see, stamping tool, amazing. I didn't get a good impression the first time. I just swing that door back shut, give it a little more pressure, and it comes out perfect. So I did not prep my surface, as you could have seen in the previous little shot. So I did have embossing powder kind of everywhere. So I just take a dry paintbrush and just kind of brush off the embossing powder where I don't want it. Get my heat tool ready, and I'm gonna heat emboss this bad boy. And this is so fun to watch. So I heat emboss it, and comes out perfect, and there's no smudging, guys. I'm gonna even touch it to make sure that there's no smudging, and of course there isn't because I heat embossed it, which means I sealed it under the embossing powder, and it gives it a little bit of a dimension. Perfect. And so I took the shimmer pen and I'm just coloring in her little wings, and I'm gonna color in her dress as well. And that's basically it. I'm just gonna leave it like that. I wanted it to be simple and sweet, and that's simple and sweet. So taking my card base, a white card base, and I am taking from that same die set from My Favorite Things, I took the 2 smaller ones. See how there's 4, the 2 smaller ones, and I just cut out a bunch of squares, the insides and the frames, and I just kind of placed them around. When I got the placement that I wanted, I actually took my son's phone and I took a picture so that I had a reference as to where I was gonna place everything on the card. So taking liquid adhesive, because you know it gives you a little more wiggle room, so I'm taking the liquid adhesive and just taking reference from the picture, and I'm gonna place everything back on the way it was when I took the picture. Okay, so taking my sentiment part, I'm gonna pop that up with some foam adhesive, so it gives it that extra pop on that card, and then just gonna take that little glitter square, that last piece, put some liquid adhesive, slip that right under the foam adhesive there, just like that. I'm just gonna bump it up against the foam adhesive as far as it can go, and then I'm gonna be using the Nouveau, it's the glitter drops, it's the honey gold, and add some of that. And that, my friends, is the last card in this series. Here are some still shots of these cards that I made for you today. I hope it gave you inspiration. I know that it took a little while, and I need to move it on to the next card kit from Hero Arts. And I am gonna be doing birthday cards. I am gonna skip over Valentine cards. I'm sorry if anybody was looking for inspiration on there, but I need to make some birthday cards ASAP. I'm so low on those cards. So anyway, thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for checking out the channel. Please hit that subscribe button, like and comment on my channel. Mahalo so much for the support. I will catch you on the next video. Ahui ho.